All right, a call to order the regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville for Tuesday, January 28th, 2020, and we'll start with roll call.
Eileen Nichols.
Here.
Barbara Stockhausen.
Here.
Jason Artz.
Here.
Barbara Doss is excused. Ken Killian.
Here.
Robin Klein.
Here.
Isaac Shanley.
Here.
Our first item this evening is a public hearing for ordinance 2020, an amendment to the electrical permits, and we'll start with staff presentation.
Okay, this is in response to information we received from the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services. That's the agency that licenses contractors and oversees commercial building inspection and residential building inspection services. So a couple of years ago, they actually started a process of kind of reevaluating their procedures and their processes and requirements. It started initially with electrical contractors, what their licensing requirements are, and then it moved to municipalities on basically what we have to meet their credentials or their requirements to conduct the inspections in-house rather than having the state do it. So during the end of that process, they took a look at our building code as it relates to the issuance of commercial electrical permits and informed us that it no longer meets their requirements that need to be modified if we want to continue conducting those inspections. So the proposed language basically takes the exact language out of the state statute that they reference and puts it into, the administrative code and puts it into our ordinance. So it takes their requirements that they're saying we need to have and adopts it essentially in full with a little bit of language left over from what we had previously.
Phone is going off.
Yeah, so basically it'll meet all the requirements because it's borrowing their language, so we shouldn't have any issues with that. So it's basically a formality at this point, but it is a requirement to allow us to continue doing electrical inspections for commercial projects. So if you're in agreement, and I apologize I didn't update my staff note there, but the motion to approve ordinance 2002 would be in order. Any questions?
Questions for any council members? All right, because this is a public hearing, we have 7 steps to go through. So the next step is public statements in favor. No one has registered to comment on this or against. Again, no one is registered or is present. And public statements in general. That moves us on to council discussion. Any questions again or comments on this? All right, so is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Nichols.
Yes.
Stockhausen.
Yes.
Artz.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Shanley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So common council action.
I will move to approve ordinance 2002 as stated in the packet. Second.
Second.
Second, and we'll vote.
Nichols.
Yes.
Stockhausen.
Yes.
Artz.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Shanley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, going on to consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature or previous discussion. Please indicate to the council president if you would prefer a separate discussion and action. First item is council minutes from our January 14th, 2020 meeting. B is payment of bills. C is appointments to boards and commissions. I have none this evening. D is licenses, 1-year and 2-year operator licenses to sell or serve alcohol. And finally, a banner permit request from United Way of Platteville from September 14th to October 31st. Is there a motion to approve the consent?
I move to approve all the items listed under the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Nichols.
Yes.
Stockhausen.
Yes.
Artz.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Shanley. Motion carries.
All right, next is citizens' comments, observations, and petitions. We have one person who's asked to comment this evening. Welcome back, Ben.
Ben Belke, 800 South Chestnut Street. Well, hello everyone. It's been a long time since I've seen you all. If you haven't noticed, school is in session. I know some of us have learned that in other ways, but school's back in session. But classes have just started. So besides that, up at Platteville, we have the provost interviews, the last half of them. So we have 3 candidates coming to campus. within the next 3 weeks or so. So they'll be coming to campus with on-campus interviews, and then after that, the chancellor gets to pick who he wants. So from here on out, the provost's decision will get closed up here soon. Also, some events that we're putting on. Student Senate's putting on the I'm Possible project. I've mentioned that a couple times. That's February 5th at 7 p.m. It's about mental health, things like that. So it'll be a really good event to have on campus. March 10th is kind of one of our Get Out to Vote effort days. So we're planning on having a full day of just getting people registered, informing people, having hopefully like a festival style. So that's our goal for that day. And that's going to go with the March 9th through the 13th, which I believe the League of Women Voters is actually doing a full week of events on campus that same week. So that whole week will be kind of filled with event stuff, and especially with that March 10th specifically on campus will be a big Get Out to Vote effort. So feel free to come on campus for that, or any of the other events. I'm sure we'd be happy to have you. So other than that, I'll take any questions.
My only question is, I'm trying to remember, were there any student representatives on the provost search committee?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I was on it. Yep.
Okay.
Can I make an addition to your announcement?
Yes, go ahead.
Campus has, lots more activities probably that weren't even
Yes.
mentioned here, but two that are on my radar, the Midwest Cultural Inclusivity
Yes, yep.
Conference, February 28th and 29th.
Yep.
And then the Monday following is a Restorative Justice Conference.
Mhm.
So registration is happening for both of those. Information online.
Yeah.
You can contact me on the Restorative Justice one if you're interested. But I think those are really great events for city staff,
Mm-hmm.
citizens,
Yeah.
anyone and everyone who's interested in
Mhm.
investing in their community at large. I think those would be great events.
And the multicultural event I know has been disbanded for a little bit, and then we're actually bringing it back. So it's actually coming back to Platteville after I think a 5-year hiatus or somewhere around that. So we're bringing it back
Great
to Platteville.
speakers.
So it'll be really great. Yeah. All right.
Ben, could I just ask you to introduce yourself? We have our new city manager with
yes.
us, and Ben's been coming now for a full semester.
Yeah.
And it's been nice having him. So if you just want to take a
So
minute.
my name is Ben Belke. I am a sophomore at campus. I'm the student body president there. And one of my goals was to come to Common Council and just give updates on what's happening with the student body and stuff that's happening generally at Platteville, just to keep that open loop between the campus and the city.
I think we need to talk about internships.
Yes.
don't we? Yes.
Yes.
You know that, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Ben. All right, next is reports in our packet. Museum Board, Stockhausen.
Nothing to add.
Historic Preservation Commission, Killian.
No addition,
Housing Authority Board, Killian.
no addition,
Commission on Aging, Stockhausen. Nothing to add. Library Board, Klein.
I think on the radar, February 14th is an appreciation event for contributors to the library. That out there, you might still be one to add yourself to that list.
I think I did get a flyer on that, actually, so, yeah. I think chocolate was included?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe some cheese, but I can't remember for sure. But yep, a good Valentine's kind of get out if you aren't already booked.
Airport Commission, Dawes is not here this evening. Community Safe Routes Committee, Arts.
Nothing to add?
And Parks, Forestry and Recreation, Arts.
The only thing is, if you are a fat tire biker or a cross-country skier or snowshoer, the Platteville Human Powered Trails group in town is now grooming trails over at Mound View, both for cross-country skiing and fat tire biking.
We'll go on to our action items. First is ordinance 2003, annexation and rezoning at 275 West Business Highway 151. Joe.
This sounds familiar to you. It's because we did actually act on this previously, but just recently, actually December, we were looking through the ordinances for the different annexation and realized that when this was approved, we did not include an actual ordinance in the packet for your approval. So to make sure that everything is done properly, we wanted to get it in front of you again and have you vote on it again with the ordinance present. So this involves the annexation of the Katie's Garden portion of the Chamber of Commerce property. It's basically the vacant part except for the gazebo next to the Chamber of Commerce building itself. It's about 2.16 acres. It is contiguous to the city, so it meets all the ordinance requirements necessary for annexation. It's a tax exempt property, so it doesn't really have any impact on other parts of the city business, but we did get that grant to do some work along the trail and the stream there. So just to make sure that all the work is kind of under the same jurisdiction, we thought it'd make sense. It'd be a good time to complete this annexation. So I would ask that you vote on it again, but this time to include in your motion to approve ordinance 20-03 to approve the annexation and rezoning of the property. Any questions?
Questions, anyone? Then is there a motion?
I move to approve ordinance 20-03 regarding annexation of the property 75 West Business Highway 151 and the rezoning of the property to B3 Highway Business.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Nichols,
Yes.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Shanley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is land donation at Lot 21 Oak Haven subdivision. Joe?
Okay, we talked about this at the last meeting. The city does own a vacant lot in the Oak Haven subdivision, Lot 21. This lot was donated to the city back in 2018. Mr. Cody, the developer of that subdivision, realized there was extensive work that would be needed to make that lot buildable, and he had started to do some filling and regrading, and basically he kind of got sidetracked and had some issues with maintaining the property. So he made the decision to ask the city if we would accept the donation, and after several meetings it did, well, there was an agreement to do that. So the city accepted the donation with the understanding that it was basically just going to be green space. There was no desire or an actual plan to do anything with that lot. Just to make sure it was maintained properly was the main issue there. In the meantime, I've been working with the school district. They're looking for land and potential building sites. They're trying to expand a building trades activities and educational efforts at the high school. And part of that, kind of the long-term goal is they'd like to eventually start building houses, having the students assist with the construction of new homes in the city. So it's going to take them a year or two to get to that point, but they'd at least like to start the process of getting a site so that they have some land ready when they get to that point. So this lot was a logical one that would meet all of their requirements. Since the city was already the owner of that, it made sense that we could make a combined effort to achieve that. I see it as a win-win. We'd get it back on the tax rolls, get a home built there. Residents could move in. Hopefully they'd have kids. That would help the school district, help their tax base. It would help their program. So it really seems like a logical effort that we would take part in. So I haven't heard any objections to it. It seemed like everybody agreed this was a good idea. So I think at this point we're just looking for confirmation from the city council that you're willing to donate that lot to the city. And then if there's any conditions that you want to include, do we need to do a development agreement to make sure that we include those conditions? I mean, when we received the land itself from Bob Cody, it was just a quitclaim deed. So if you want to do it simple, we could quitclaim deed the property back, to the school district and keep it at that. If there's any issues that we want to make sure are addressed, if they build on it by a certain period of time, certain value home, I don't know what, any concerns that you might have on it, then we would do some kind of a development agreement that would include those issues and make sure they're followed. So I guess at this point we want to confirm that you're interested in giving the land to the school, and then, as I mentioned, any conditions would be included.
I'm in favor of doing that gift, but I would like to recommend that the house be similar to the homes in that subdivision.
That's
In value and maybe appearance, so that it's appropriate.
that subdivision would already have covenants on there, so there'd already be a minimum square footage, whether it was a ranch style or a two-story. Certain building designs would already have to be to meet the covenants, so that would already be in with that subdivision covenants, so.
Thank you.
Part of any agreement with the school district that is understood that there are covenants.
And they are aware of that, because they've already looked into it, as far as, they've actually read the covenants themselves, so they're aware of those.
Yeah, I think as Joe and I had a chance to kind of talk about this one, our recommendation or the recommendation from staff would be that, we would recommend moving forward with some type of formal development agreement. That way, to Isaac's point here, we make sure that they understand there's covenants, which they do, but you want to put that in a development agreement. We want to make sure that, we want them to be successful, but we also want to ensure from the city's standpoint that it's not something that's going to be sitting, 5-10 years down the road. So we want to make sure that that's put into the development agreement. And basically the big incentive for them is that we're going to give them the land basically as a discount, for free under the conditions that, they get it done within, whether it's a 3 or 5 year period, to Barb's point, we make sure we hit all of the keys of, square footage, everything that's in the covenants, and that it's a quality product, win-win for everybody. So that would be our recommendation, is to move forward with a development agreement.
So if we have a motion this evening, it would be basically, the preference would be just to say that as a council, we agree with the donation of the land, but with the understanding that the city staff is going to present.
A formal development agreement, correct.
And if you have other comments you'd like to have added to the developers agreement, then, either if you have something tonight, or if you think of something later, and get a hold of Joe or the city manager and let him know that.
How soon are you going to work on the agreement?
You want me to start it tomorrow? I think the first question is we'd obviously have to go to the school district and kind of figure out, that would be the first question. We'd have to have a conversation with the school district and start drafting that plan. But realistically, I would think we would want to have it within the next.
Yeah, like I said, I think from the school standpoint, they're not going to be doing anything this year, but they want to know that they have the lot so they can move forward with the rest of their preparations as needed. So I don't think it's a rush, but at the same time, we would like to keep this thing moving along.
Well, I have certain thoughts about building the house as far as construction. So that's one of the things I'd like to see.
Sure.
And I think, as Adam mentioned, the idea of having some kind of a timeline on it, so that if, let's say, they are not successful in the program within 3 years or something, the land is
Right. Is that
still the city's, and if someone else would want to purchase it at that point, they would be allowed to do that, so. Okay, so is there a motion from?
Well, Ken brought it to attention previously. I don't know when you're gonna list off your building recommendations, but the one thing you commented about that I would probably wanna throw out there as well is, if it wasn't cost prohibitive, I would think it would make sense for the school district to build an ADA compliant home. So that would probably be a nice thing that was featured. But I don't know what that's to basic building plans.
sure.
I mean,
Well-
maybe they're doing grant applications anyhow in this process, so. Sorry, Ken, go ahead.
What I'd like to do is make up a list of things that I consider that would go into a well-built home. So, handicap accessibility is one.
And I think if you can get that done, rather quickly, so that when
Yes.
they have the conversation with the high school, they'll have a better idea maybe of what we're thinking, or at least council members thinking, and
Right.
and see how that works with the school. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so is there a motion to agree to donate the land with understanding that the city staff will be preparing some kind of an agreement?
I make a motion for the city to donate lot number 21 of the Oak Haven subdivision to the Platteville School District to further develop their building and trades program as to construct a new home on such lot, with the understanding that there will be a development agreement between the city and the school system.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments? We'll vote.
Nichols?
Yes.
Stockhausen? Yes. Arts?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes,
Klein?
Yes.
Shanley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next is Community Resource Officer.
Good evening. Recent discussions with the school board and the school district about the possibility of developing a community resource officer position have been very productive, and both the police department and the school board and school district have been very enthusiastic about this. The community resource officer position would be akin to a school resource officer position, but they would have expanded duties in the community itself as well. One of the nice features of this position is that it would be funded by the school's Fund 80 revenue source, which would, it's a community service fund, and that would be used to pay the wages and benefits for a police officer who would in turn be responsible for duties in and around the school, responding to issues as needed. But then they would also be available during the summer to help out with potentially Parks and Rec programs, maybe patrolling or walkthroughs at the library, skate park. Luke Peters has indicated he'd like to see him at the pool. I mean, it would be a neat position that I think would really benefit both the school district, the community, and the city. So that what it would do is take us from when we're at full staff right now, we have 20 sworn. This would take us to 21. So what I'm seeking tonight is permission from you folks to go to 21 sworn officers. At the timing would approximately be mid to late August when they would act in this capacity.
Questions, anyone? I do have a question. Years ago, I had a community resource officer, or I think that was the name at the time, and part-time at the school and part-time for the city.
Yep.
And the wage benefits were covered half and half from what I remember. Doug, does that sound right?
I recall about 20 years ago that we had Sergeant Dan Jacobson acting in that role, and then I also think Dan Dressler, one of our officers, and I don't recall exactly what the revenue breakdown was or funding for.
I was just wondering, with this Fund 80, will this fund the position for a number of years? Do you have any idea, or is it a 1 year?
That is part of, and I've talked to the city manager about it, that's part of what would be the ongoing negotiations with the school district, because I don't want to see, and the city manager expressed the same thing, we don't want to see this as a one-off and we've backfilled that position and now you'd have to lay somebody off. And I truly don't think that in 1 year you're going to see the real benefit of this position. So it's something that I think would have to develop over time, and I think that the school district has the same attitude about that. But that's something that we would very much want to have in place, something that hopefully guaranteed, more long.
Yeah, my plan of action would be to develop a memorandum of understanding that the school district and we would sign, which basically would indicate, I'd push district starters that at least for 5 years, this position would have to be there just so that we have that safety net. And it's, I did one in the previous place I was at, so I'm pretty comfortable with what typically needs to go in there. So that would be the approach I would take, is to have both of us would be working with the school district to have that formal memorandum of understanding signed.
Can I get a refresher on the history of Fund 80? Like it's got some years, but likeliness of that being there long term.
That is more a question for the school board, but their financial outlook is at this point quite stable.
I can take a little swing at that and give you some history. So that fund, to my understanding, has been a long-standing kind of opportunity, but around 2016, 2017, there was a major push by the state to push more money available into that fund, and you really had two options that you could do with it. It was either geared towards the creation of either a community resource officer or a school resource officer, or they added additional funding to go towards security cameras, and it mainly was because of school safety. So a lot of kind of school districts now, because of the additional funding that's been available to them out of that, is using it to create these positions.
So if that went away, the school district would be on the hook to continue that position for the duration of this contract at least.
Correct.
Unless we renegotiate it or something.
Other questions?
I did have another question, I'm just
Oh, sorry.
remembering. To push into the weeds a little bit further, but, can you give some context of the size of city that Platteville is and a typical police force in a college town? As well as, is there any, like, tipping point that if your department gets to a certain size, there's different requirements or stipulations or?
There aren't any, I mean, there are best practices. I mean, you can discuss back and forth all day what is the correct ratio for a community, officers to population served. There isn't anything that stipulates we have to have X amount of officers per 1,000. I mean, that's the way it's typically looked at, and some very small communities have a tremendous ratio. Some really big cities have a tremendous ratio. Typically, communities our size tend to be a little bit less in the ratio. And you can look at it, population served. Does it include the college campus? Not all of them, because a lot of them live on campus and they're not residents year round. So I mean, it's kind of a hard thing to nail down, but I mean, there's nothing that we would be out of compliance with by either having too many or too few. I mean, it's what we need to have to deliver the level of service that we've come to expect.
Just kind of the thought process wanting to point out that with or without another officer, the idea of a designated resource officer helping out at the school on a consistent basis might help stabilize your operations day to day regardless. So
Definitely, because it's not out of the norm right now for our officers to have to go to the schools to respond. Could that still be the case? Sure. But I would like to think that a number of those situations would be reduced because you'd already have somebody there. They may have the background with the people involved and may be able to handle it in much less time because of that relationship.
And I always think the sworn officers is an interesting statement. So you and everyone below you are all sworn officers,
Correct.
right? So when we talk 21 sworn officers, we're talking the entire police force, not the ones who maybe are in the cars that we see driving around a lot.
Not the CSOs that are typically college kids. Those are, I mean, they're handling barking dog, not even barking dog, loose dogs, going around doing home security checks, unlocking car doors for people, issuing parking tickets. They're not handling anything of an emergency nature or any true calls for service other than the door unlocks.
All right, so the idea or the motion would be to approve the hiring with the addition of the memorandum of understanding between the city and. Any other questions? Otherwise, motion?
I move to approve the hiring of a 21st police officer to allow the creation of a community their position.
Second it.
Memorandum of understanding?
Memorandum of understanding between the city and the school?
Yep.
Is that, okay.
All right. A motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Nichols?
Yes.
Stockhausen?
Yes.
Arts?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes,
Klein?
Yes.
Shanley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And just to clarify, we're currently filling a position right now, but that's to fill the 20th officer vacancy. So it's not like we're hiring this all right now. I mean, this previously existing vacancy. So.
All right, next item is 2020 city goals. Nicola.
Thank you. So the background on this item, just to refresh from the last council meeting, is that the city was operating under a 3-year strategic plan for 2017 through 2019. It was originally scheduled to go through a strategic planning process in 2019 for 20 to 22. But with the transition in city manager, we postponed that process. But we did put together some goals for the city in 2020. And so those are the goals that are included here in the report. And staff is asking that the council approve those goals for 2020 in lieu of a new strategic plan.
Questions on any of the information regarding the goals?
I move to approve the 2020 city goals
A second.
in lieu of the strategic plan. Was that part of it?
You don't need to add that part.
Okay,
You don't want to
okay.
do it.
So just the 2020 city goals.
Wait a second. We'll vote.
Nichols?
Yes.
Stockhausen?
Yes.
Arts?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes,
Klein?
Yes.
Shanley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We have one information and discussion item. It's resolution creating the Solid Waste and Recycle Committee. Ordinance.
Okay. Back in October, during the council meeting, there was a motion to establish a committee. What we're doing right now is we're proposing that this be formally established through a resolution. This would have a committee review alternatives for solid waste collection and recycling no later than December 31st, 2020. And staff is recommending that the committee be 5 members, one being a council member, and then we're recommending that the other 4 represent single-family owner-occupied households, landlords and renters of single-family or duplex households, and that the members of the committee be appointed by the council president, subject to approval of the council.
Questions, anyone?
How might the decisions of the committee affect institutions or business owners that they're not on this committee?
They will not, because our contract is to do solid waste and recycling collection for single-family and duplex households, and we also do city properties. We include city properties. Any properties, residential properties, triplex or more, commercial, industrial, institutional, they need to do their solid waste and collection separately. We do have an agreement with the university that they will run their contract through us, but that's a separate arrangement with them. They reimburse us for all direct costs plus an administrative fee. But yeah, if you're talking about a downtown business or like the Washington Place Apartments or Ruxton or something like that, they need to have their own separate contract.
I guess what I'm wondering is if the city makes decisions with all of its residential properties, that would impact how our recycling company is doing business, which might in effect then interact with the way that they handle those other customers. And I don't know, this is for the committee to hammer out all of that, and maybe the question is more for Faraday, how will that impact the way you do other business? I'm just curious if it will shift things, you know, in ways we didn't anticipate. So that's all for the committee to handle out or work out, but I was just curious. Okay. And then if we create this committee, but they have an action that they need to take by the end of the year, what happens to the committee after that? Resolves?
As far as I know, the way that this is worded is that the committee dissolves as soon as the work is done at the end of this calendar year. Now, if their work is not done, God, I hope they'll be done, but if by some chance their work is not done, then we would need to bring this back to the council to reauthorize them an extension.
Other questions or comments? I would just like to remind all the council members that the State of the City presentation is tomorrow night. Starts at 4, ends at 6:30. It's at Steve's Pizza.
Thursday night?
Is it Thursday?
Oh, Thursday, I'm sorry.
Thursday,
Tomorrow's
yeah.
only Wednesday. Thursday night, I'm sorry. Thank you for the correction. You would have all been there tomorrow night.
If you go there tomorrow, it won't be free.
No.
So Thursday night, and the presentation itself is at 5 o'clock, am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Okay.
so 5 o'clock, so if you want to be there for the presentation, that would be the special time to be there. All right. Anybody else have anything? Otherwise, a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Nichols,
Yes.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Hartz,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
Klein,
Yes.
Shanley.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Motion carries.
this presentation is